high school sports talk. He's Matt Horvath. My name is Chad Bush. We'll have our first guest today. The head coach of the state champion technicians of Cass Tech will join us, Steve Hall. I know we're both looking forward to that. And this will be a boys basketball-centered episode of the PreP Pod as we venture our second week. Mac, how was your weekend?
It's good. Spent up north, northern Michigan. June, what could be better?
Sounds like a Kid Rock song. All right, let's get into it. This has been a little bit of informative period with high school boys basketball. There's been and I don't know all the technicalities of the seasons, but they've been able to play now.
Yeah.
Some scrimmages, some camps, etc. We've heard of a lot of movement. Some guys moving in, some guys moving out. And then we've seen some kids get commitments and offers and so on and so forth. So we feel that there's a boys basketball theme here today with Steve Hall, our guest, coming up shortly. Let's get into it. We'll start first with, I guess, the biggest moves over the last couple weeks and players coming in. And anytime you get a nationally ranked player that comes into your state, it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in Michigan. We're getting used to nationally ranked players leaving our state. And all of a sudden, some of these guys are sticking around that are nationally ranked, and everybody's like, wait a minute, when are they taking off? It's not happening. In fact, we're getting guys coming into this state.
For once.
In
a long time.
Yeah. Mac, get us up to speed. Let's start with this kid that's coming in. Obviously, he's coming in for a certain reason, but nonetheless, it's another great player to this wonderfully talented state of Michigan boys basketball.
Yeah, a lot of people are excited for the new Pistons hire, Monty Williams, myself definitely being one of them. But if you're a high school basketball fan, son's coming with him, Elijah, top 5 player in the country in the 2026 class. So he'll be a sophomore coming up this upcoming season, joining a looking to be reloading roster in the Brother Rice Warriors. So, definitely, like we said, there hasn't been many players come in. A lot have left, to play the prep circuit or go to a place with better opportunities, so they felt. Although, I hope this changes the guard because I just never liked that argument. Go play in some of these gyms in Michigan. Go play in the Central. Go play in the Macomb League. Go play in those leagues and tell me that doesn't prepare you better for playing in college than going the prep route and playing in front of 30 people. Granted, it's just very AAU-like, and you want to have that college experience, which I think those high schools, like we mentioned, give you. And I think this is a good thing, and I hope this turns around, Michigan losing out on a lot of talent.
So Monty Williams' son comes in, Elijah. He's ranked number three in the country according to Rivals in the class of 2026.
Correct.
This is a good get for Rick Palmer and Brother Rice.
Yep.
Especially off the heels of losing Blackwell, Thomas, and who am I missing? Of course, their biggest, Curtis Williams.
Yeah.
Curtis Williams, Thomas, and Blackwell. They're big 3. Not to mention Garrity. Yeah. Who was a big loss, but he was not a part of the team last year due to injury. Headed to to Notre Dame for football. But listen, this is a good guy to start the rebuild, if you will, around. You've still got a talented player there that continues to get offers as well, and Warren Marshall. Who continues to accelerate.
Had a great summer so far from what I've heard.
Yeah, right? Is that so?
Yeah.
The kid just seems to have all the right intangibles, but he's kind of a tweener, right? D2, D1. He has gotten some D1 offers. I guess he started with some D2s. He's proven to have a handful of Division I offers.
Yeah.
A nice kid, a nice player. But now you're bringing in, at Brother Rice, some other layers of talent.
Right.
Number 3 in a class, something this state hasn't seen in a long time.
And now that's adding on top of, the Trey McKinney and Orchard Lake, top 15 player in the country in his class.
That's right.
And somebody we'll definitely hear about in a little bit, Darius Acuff as well from Cass Tech, top 15 player in his class. So Loaded in Michigan.
3
Yeah.
top 15 players in the country, according to Rivals. I mean, they're respected. McKinney in at 13, Acuff in at 15, and Elijah Williams in the class of 2026 checks in at number 3.
Yeah.
From Sunrise Academy in Arizona. What do we know about his game?
I think you're going to get, 6'6" wing player for college, be able to do it all. Super athletic. Scouting reports say pretty long. I'm excited to see him in person. Can't wait for the winter for it.
Yeah. It certainly didn't help that Monty Williams, of course, probably has ties with Notre Dame and certainly Garrity, his father having ties to Notre Dame. I know they overlapped. They did not overlap. One came in while the other was going out, but certainly the confidence in Garrity going back to perhaps Monty Williams, and I don't know if that happened, but you would think there'd be a recommendation there. And, they endorsed Rick Palmer. So, I mean, I think that speaks volumes for the Rice basketball program. And Brother Rice wasn't done. They've lost those 3 or 4, but now they've got another guy out of Okemos, Trevor Smith.
Yeah, I believe so.
Travis Smith. Apologize. Anyway, coming in from Okemos, another guy with some length and size. What do you know about him?
Shooter's what I heard from the outside. So, again, we'll get a good look. But there's a lot of shots that are missing in Birmingham from last season. So, there's a big hole to fill as far as points to put on the board. Warren Marshall's definitely going to fill that role. It'll be really interesting to see because there's a difference when you're the 4th option to when you are the option, which, again, it sounds like he's handled well, which I think he would. He seems to have a very good head and shoulder, complete all-around game, inside, outside. Some exciting talent around the state. Winter kind of can't get here soon enough, even though the weather it's been pretty good lately. So, but no, exciting stuff for basketball in the state of Michigan. Again, if you like high school basketball in the state of Michigan, last month or so has been a lot of positive news.
Trey McKinney continues to pile up offers from nearly, it seems like, multiple high major Division I schools every day. He's just a junior going into his junior year. I mean, he's at number 13 now in that class. We mentioned Acuff at 15. I mean, that's a heavy loaded class. And Trey continues to climb.
Yeah.
Word on the street is his summer is just continued to elevate him in the recruiting circles as well.
Yeah, they both have. I mean, if you check out Rivals, Trey's moved up 30-some spots in his class, but Acuff, if you look at, is now 15, and he's a new add to the top 150 they got.
Wow.
So, and if you look at who's piled up offers since the end of the regular season in high school basketball, I think Darius Acuff has piled up the most offers and the most impressive list of offers. I mean, there's Michigan, Michigan State, Kansas. There's some huge offers that he's picked up. So obviously, building off of the state championship run that they had last March, and follows that up with a great AAU season. And the kid's an all-around scorer. So again, it'll be really interesting to see, how the rest of his high school career plays out. Again, interested to see what Coach Hall has to say, what he has in store for him for the next few years, and some goals. It's hard to, your PSL Player of the Year, win a state championship, but hopefully he's still driven to continue to build on his skill level and get ready for the next level.
It's so rewarding to see the state of Michigan retaining players like Trey McKinney and Acuff, Darius Acuff, and then bringing in a guy, having a guy being excited to come in. And look, Elijah Williams could have stayed at his prep school in Arizona. But when was the last time there were 3 top 15 ranked players in the country?
Yeah.
And I know Trey and Acuff are in the same class, the junior class, but Williams is a sophomore. I mean, these guys are here for at least another year or so, you would hope and plan. When was the last time a trio like this existed at the same time frame?
That's what we were saying. It's exciting that none of these guys are seniors. Hopefully we all get to enjoy this for 2 years. But, yeah, we were thinking back and really can't remember. I mean, when, Amani was in college, there was definitely some good players around him, but top 10 in their class, I don't think there was. Before Amani was kind of Josh Jackson, that was that top 5 player in the country. Again, before him, I don't think there again were good players around, but I don't think to that caliber. So, yeah, it's a special time. I think we'd have to go back to the Jalen and Chris Webber days, early 90s. to get the type of level, hopefully, that we have talent-wise in the state for this upcoming season and hopefully the following season as well.
Yeah. What are some other stories that you've seen this summer with teams competing in the summer league? And I guess I want to know from a coach's perspective, how much can you take from a summer league game, and how important is it to win, and who's really rolling out their best roster? How do you rate improvement in summer league games?
I mean, definitely everybody has their own feel of this and, is going to put their own mix on it. Me personally, I like to try to see who could play at that level in their new roles, because every one of these teams is going to have kids jumping into new roles. So how do certain players fit, and how do they handle playing in these new roles? Is there some surprises? Is there a chance to jump on a kid because he hasn't made the progress that you expect him to make? But as far as the competitiveness of these summer games, they're competitive, but they're all kind of different. And, talking to some coaches, they'll talk about how I've asked them, how did it go at Grand Valley? There was a big showcase up there that B Camp puts on it's a live period. A lot of the Division I coaches in the area are going to be there, scouting the top talent in Michigan. Ohio just had theirs. A lot of our teams went down there and competed. But, you talk to some of these coaches and they say, this game was this game was that. But what I always love hearing, which a couple of them said, it felt like a March game. It felt like a tournament game, which it does. And, it's an exciting time. They're short games. It's 20 minutes running clock, first half, second half. But if you're a coach and if you're playing at a high level, you're competitive. If the scoreboard works, you want to win. And that's part of the fight and the grit you want to see that your players have. So really, I think it's a lot of feeling out for that. But, wins and losses, some people like to put those things on Twitter and things like that. It's a summer league game. A lot of teams might not be rolling out their best rosters. You got kids at football, kids at baseball, kids just not there for whatever type of reason. So you can't put too much stock into it, but you like to be able to see your team compete as a group, together.
What was the biggest piece of news that came out of the Grand Valley Summer League? Anything drop out of that?
Nothing too big there. Just asking, who were kind of the best teams that you've seen. That's what I always like to ask coaches. Who's the best that you've seen around? There's some teams maybe on the west side of the state that were good. I heard Orchard Lake looks really good. I heard Brother Rice looks really good. I heard Byron Center looks really good. And you get those surprising teams. It's like, all right, that's a name and a team to pay attention towards once December rolls around. But yeah, we'll see.
The Ohio thing you mentioned, I'm interested about that. Is it a collection of teams from Michigan and Ohio, or what's the event typically down there?
Well, Michigan's big event is at Grand Valley for B Camp. It's during the live period. They do a great job. It's invite. They bring a ton of teams in. I mean, I want to say it's close to 100 teams. And it sounds like Ohio, they had theirs the following week or this past weekend. I know Brother Rice went down there. I'm not sure what other teams from the area went down there, but it's Ohio's version of this during the live period for these players to get exposure in front of these college coaches and them to be seen and hopefully get on somebody's radar for this upcoming season.
We will continue our talk on boys basketball. This theme, our guest is Steve Hall, a coach from Cass Tech who was named not just the basketball coach of the year or the MHSAA coach of the year. He was named the Coach of the Year for high school sports by the Detroit Free Press earlier this week. Mac and I will take a quick time out. And, Mac, why don't we first pay the bills and talk about what we have at Mitten Mortgage?
Mitten Mortgage Lending here. So, again, working with Mitten Mortgage Lending, you're going to be working with a broker compared to a retail shop. So we're able to offer a variety of different products. We work with a lot of different banks to offer the surplus of mortgage options to our clients. And by doing that, we're able to do it on a much more personal basis. Somebody like myself as a loan officer would be with you from start to finish, from the application to the closing table. And one product I want to make sure that I mention is our new one-time close product for new construction. There's a lot of people out there looking for a brand new home and are struggling to get into it. An option they might want to consider is building a new home, which are able to do that if you can qualify. 5% down is the minimum. That's a big thing, which is newer. It used to be a lot more you had to put down for a new build. 5% is the minimum that you have to put down if you hit all other requirements. This is beneficial to the client who's going to be building the home. Again, a lot less out of pocket. Beneficial to the builder as well. This one-time close, the funding is going to be there. If you're a builder, these loans will be funded before a shovel hits the ground to build the home. So reach out today, 313-477-1965 or mac@mittenloans.com, and that's NMLS 1773215.
Check them out. Mitten Mortgage Lending. Check my friend out. Thank you very much for that, Mac. We'll take a break. When we come back, it's the Coach of the Year from Cass Tech. Steve Hall will join us right after this as we roll on the Prep Pod. Welcome back on the Prep Pod. He's Mac Horvath. My name is Chad Bush. Glad you're with us on episode 2, and we came out with our first guest with a big swing, and it's none other than the Coach of the Year, and not just basketball, for the entire high school sports year. The Detroit Free Press has named Steve Hall of Cass Tech the Coach of the Year. Congratulations. Thanks for coming on the Prep Pod, Steve.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Glad to be here.
What a year for you and for your alma mater. You're a proud 88 grad of the green and white. You get a state title in a year that some of the best teams brought their best effort. It wasn't without trials, tribulations. It was with a young team mixed with a couple veterans. You put it all together and brought home the first state title ever to your alma mater. What a great feeling it must have been. Take us through this journey of a season that really is groundbreaking for you and your alma mater.
Well, it's really been a culmination of, maybe 3 or 4 years, with COVID and with the abbreviated season we had in 2020, where we felt we had a great chance to win the state championship, and it was cut short, and then the following year we come back and we are 14-1, and we individually get eliminated, so we had quite a few of the same kids that were part of what we were doing, and really you establish a goal and you set these lofty goals, and everybody has similar goals, but when you actually carry it out and you reflect on it, it's really amazing. It really is, just to sit back and think that we won the state championship, Division I, state of Michigan. That's a big deal. And I'm talking with Mac right now just about things that seem like a long time ago, but to us it seems like just yesterday, still being able to remember what somebody did maybe 20 years ago. So that's where it becomes surreal. That's where you really get the gratification of your accomplishments, and it's just phenomenal, and it still feels good.
Yeah, I was telling Chad earlier, the first time I saw you guys play in person this year, saw you ranked number 1, and was expecting to see, honestly, a bigger roster than you guys had. It wasn't the tallest group, basically. It's a lot of guys similar size, but played a lot tougher, and toughness is something I know that we used to talk about when our teams played, pressing all the time. You got to have that toughness. I thought this might not have been the biggest team you guys had, but I thought right off the get, this was the toughest team I've seen that you had. Can you speak a little bit on that?
I just think that we have an identity and a program, something that we can identify with, something where we know who we are and we know what we're about. And everybody knows what we're about and who we want to be, and that's something that when I went to college I learned with all of the technology, it's not so much about people knowing what you're going to do. It's about, who's going to be better, me at being who I am or you are preparing for who I am, So I just don't really worry about people maybe knowing what we're going to do. It's just about us mastering who we are. And this was probably the most gratifying group, just with us being somewhat undersized, and it looked like we had, some things working against us, but we were tough. We loved one another. We played for each other. We had a mission, and it was very gratifying, and I agree with your sentiment. That's pretty much how I perceived us also.
Yeah.
It was a mix of veterans and some youngsters, that got introduced that are now some of the nation's highest rated, and, of course, ACUF. And you've coached multiple ACUFs, but this was a special one, and he sort of introduced himself to everybody this season, but he wasn't the only character out there. Just talk about the cohesiveness of this team and how it all blended just right with enough youth and enough, veterans. Robertson's a guy that pops into the Walker, all these guys in the youth and Sadler. I mean, it all came around perfectly. How did you form it all?
So I can remember a couple years ago where some people said we weren't very good, and it's gratifying because these are some of the same kids. They were just 2 years younger, and I remember a few years back when Ypsilanti Lincoln won the championship and Imani Bates, was getting most of the acclaim.
Mm-hmm.
But he was surrounded by 3 or 4 seniors that were veterans, that were tough, that played together, and he was the headliner, but those guys made it happen. So we had that dynamic also. Kai Walker and Christian Hairston, those guys were Sean Hodges' 3- and 4-year varsity players.
Yeah.
They were seasoned, and they had a conversation with me mid-season, just to tell me that, we had some of our headliners were youthful, and just for us to manage that appropriately. It's a tough dynamic when you're a 3- or 4-year player and everybody's enamored with the guys that came behind them, but they were special, and they helped, lend perspective to the whole group, and that had a lot to do with our success. We had seasoned veteran guys with a high maturity level that love one another, and that's why I think it was able to come together.
So one of the guys that Chad mentioned there, Corey Sadler, freshman, great player on the football field, just picked up a Bama offer this weekend, which they don't hand those out to everybody, that's for sure. But, it's a multi-sport kid. So a lot of those elite, I want to say football players especially, a lot of times want to focus just on football and just play that. How do you deal, especially at Cass Tech, great football program as well, puts out a lot of high recruits. How do you deal with that as a basketball coach, getting these kids to play and buy into the multi-sport mentality?
As an athletic director, I'm advocating all the sports first of all. But for myself, I was at Detroit Rogers, and we didn't have football. We didn't have that, and I always felt that was a disadvantage. So I always thought when I came to a school that did, that I would try to utilize that and make that an advantage. So from that standpoint, I love multiple sport kids. That on basketball, they always can provide some toughness and things of that nature. But in terms of Corey Sadler, I've known him probably since he was about 11, and he's always been. He's such a gifted football player that people look at him as a football player playing basketball, but he's been a pretty good basketball player for quite some time also.
Yeah, he's very skilled.
And basketball was something that he envisioned himself doing, so he has some of those same qualities, and I think his future will be in football, but he's a pretty good high school basketball player also. And
you've seen a lot of that too. Do you feel a lot of these football coaches, they want to see those kids participate in multiple sports? And have you had football coaches come to watch a basketball practice or recruit a kid during basketball season?
Well, it's case by case. Not all coaches welcome that dynamic. I think at our school, we've been able to get some good chemistry, and have some guys have success doing both. But it's not always a happy marriage, and I think that's what makes it unique, that we can share our athletes and they can have the attributes that they can pass along from one sport to the other, and everybody wins.
Steve, tell us about this year's team and what's coming back, what's coming in, what's gone. Give us a bit of a synopsis, an early look at the technicians of 2024.
Well, I can just tell you who we are. We are a program that builds from within. Sometimes you have a player that may have improved more than you thought he would. Sometimes you have a player that you thought might have returned that didn't. But we're going to be Cass Tech regardless. I got some people that I feel are ready to have increased roles. I have some returners that I think I'm hoping can have an increased role. In 2020, Tyson Acuff's senior year, prior to the season, I had a conversation with him. As a junior, he probably averaged about 14 or 15 points. He was all-city player, but he was the only returning starter. So I had a conversation with him in the preseason. I said, Tyson, when I was a senior at Cass, I averaged 30 points a game, man. I'm going to run plays for you. I'm going to run stuff through you. But you're going to have to increase your production from a scoring standpoint. That's what we're going to need for us to be successful. And he ended up probably averaging about 26 points. We posted him up. We moved him around. And he was the consummate leader and showed some people some dimensions that they hadn't seen before. So, when you have good players that are able to do more, And I think I got some younger guys that are ready for increased roles, but we're going to be who we are. It's going to be some people where you're going to wonder where they were last year because they're performing like a veteran. That's our goal because we don't really have the ability to add a lot of new pieces through transfers, et cetera.
Cass Tech's always a top program in the state, but obviously winning the state title comes with a little bit extra and may come with a little bit of a bullseye on your guys' back this year. Is that something, how are you looking forward to embracing that challenge of defending something as opposed to chasing the title like you guys always have before this past season?
Mac, I've experienced that already, in the summer. Coach Joe Kai from De La Salle told me, he said, man, congratulations and get ready, saddle up because, even in a summer league game, if somebody beats you, it's Twitter worthy. It's hitting social media before the game's even over. We beat the defending Division I state champions, and that comes with the territory. So, myself and my team have been the type of people that are driven by naysayers, and we're competitive people. So that's kind of driven us to the point where we were this year, where I was just telling Chad when we played Brother Rice, they said that we were number one, but Brother Rice was the best team. So things like that drive you. We were never really picked as the team that people thought were going to win. People questioned our schedule. People questioned our personnel. And, adversity breaks some, and it causes others to break records. So that's the type of people that I think I have with us. But, yeah, to whom more is expected, more is given. We have a huge bullseye, and hopefully we can continue to use that to drive us to achieve.
What was that like, getting rated? And you did overtake Brother Rice at one point of the season. I think it was the midway point in most of the rankings. But, yeah, the talk was the Central Division's the toughest league in the state. PSL, it's Cass and King and maybe Renaissance. And then it's rest period. But you did play some folks in the non-conference. You went out, you played some teams that did end up with some MPR rankings that were higher. And, hey, look, maybe you didn't play the toughest schedule in the state. Maybe it wasn't all in your control. But in the end, maybe the toughest schedule isn't always the best as well for your team. Every team's different. Your thoughts?
My consumption as a coach is not what's in the best interest of a fan.
Yeah.
The fans want to see the heavyweight battle. I'm looking at being the best team I need to be in February or March, and sometimes that doesn't line up with what you want to see in December or January. And with all due respect, I'm not consuming what the fan wants to see.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of anybody. We're not running from anybody. We want to see those people. People said they wanted to see us play Orchard Lake St. Mary's. We were one game away from playing Orchard Lake St. Mary's. We did our part.
Yeah.
And that's with all due respect. I mean, that's how it works. I'm looking at the whole puzzle of where it is that we're trying to get. And sometimes, I have football players that are playing football all the way up to November, and it's not the best scenario for my team and my situation at that time. If it fits the puzzle, then that's what we'll do. If last year I had 4 seniors that were starting, that might be different than if you're incorporating a couple new ones. That's just how it works. But you want to be playing your best basketball in March, and that's our objective.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like there's a lot of people that put a lot of emphasis on those games in January and December. They really don't mean much, especially when you're trying to build a team to be the best in March. One thing that you guys always got to prepare for, and what you had to do this year, which you guys were able to accomplish, which any coach will tell you is tough, is beating a good team 3 times, and you guys were able to beat your rival King 3 times. Right. What type of challenge did that face for you this season?
To that point, Mac, the league that we play in, somewhat top heavy, but pretty good teams at the top.
Oh, yeah.
So when I'm scheduling or preparing for, Western in the semifinals, and we got to wait and see who wins between King and Renaissance 2 days later, because I think it was Friday, Sunday last year. It's not, as easy as a lot of people may think. It's those are talented teams. People, it's a lot of ammunition and motivation to beat each other. We're rivals, and no love lost in terms of, in between the lines. So we still have a tough league, and it's still competitive, and it does feel good to be able to beat anybody numerous times, especially when you realize the amount of preparation and sometimes the amount of disdain that exists.
How much better does it feel to be king than a normal win?
Well, I know that it's important to the crowd, and it's important to the student body, and it's important to a lot of people. So from that standpoint, it feels good. But to me, it's honestly not anything extra just because of who we're playing. But more or less what it stands for. It's the city championship. If it's an elimination game, then yeah, that means a whole lot to me because of the magnitude of the situation. But truthfully, I think it's the relationships and the competitiveness between the student bodies, et cetera, that make it what it is. It's not really that much extra to me, to be honest with you.
I know I've talked to Coach Jokai about this. And one of the things we always said after winning a big game, it wasn't even like feeling of, jubilation or anything. It was almost just relief that the game's over and you're happen to be victorious. But that feeling of relief, is that something you guys get when you play King for yourself?
That's something that I got pretty much all year, because when you rank number one, it's nowhere to go but down. So anything is celebration if you lose. You're favored to win. You're supposed to win. You're picked to win, and like you said, it's most of the wins were relief. And it really never was much time to take it in and enjoy it until it was all over with. All the way till the last weekend of the season, you win an overtime game in the semifinals, and you got a state championship 24 hours later. With not a lot of prep time because you don't know who's going to win those games. So when do you exhale? When do you have a chance to enjoy it? Not really until now, to be honest with you.
You've got an opportunity this upcoming year to coach one of your sons. Stevie is an incoming 9th grader. You also got a 6th grader, Sheldon. How cool is that, the concept? And I'm sure you've coached him before. But what's the thought like of perhaps coaching your son this season at Cass Tech as an incoming freshman?
And shout out to the ladies of the household too, Stacy and Sydney.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's gratifying. I've been sticking him in summer and fall league games probably since the 5th grade. He's been on the sideline, and everybody's watched him grow. And it's gratifying to be able to coach my son. I've talked to Ray McCallum. I've talked to Ernie Ziegler, Pierre Brooks, a lot of friends of mine that have had the opportunity to coach their kids. So it's something that I'm looking forward to, but it's also a situation where I'm relying on the strong staff that I have to help me with that dynamic because, I'm still a father, and I've never had to balance this before, Chad, to be honest with you. So it's uncharted water for me.
Fun waters, I can imagine, but, yeah, challenging and uncharted, no doubt.
Yeah.
So you got your son coming in, obviously going to develop him into a player, and that's something that you guys as a program have been able to do is develop talent. One of the things, looking at your roster and the way you guys do business compared to other programs in the state, that I don't hear, you guys don't get a lot of transfers.
Right.
You guys don't lose a lot of guys. You guys don't bring a lot of guys in, and that's a big hot topic issue right now is transfers, kids moving around.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
And nothing against people that do get transfers, because if you have a good product, people want to be a part of it. So I'm not knocking anybody that does that. It's just not something that we've been allowed to do. It's something that's supposed to be getting revisited because it's really not a level playing field.
Right.
To be honest with you. But because of our dynamics, we have to try to find a way to be successful. And what we try to do is put a lot into our lower levels so that we can continue to, replace good players with other good players. We had great coaching at the lower levels. Derry Williams and Larry Borum do a great job with our junior varsity and our freshman programs. And oftentimes we have kids that are ready to step in and have increased roles. So that's my philosophy, and that's what we believe in.
Those Saturday games playing Divine Child get those guys real ready to go.
No question about it.
Every
no
year.
question about it.
Every year.
You two matched wits and played each other?
Oh, only at the younger levels. My JV and freshman coaches would be so mad at me. Why did you schedule Cass on a Saturday? I'm like, hey, go compete. Go compete.
That's it. What an alumni base Cass Tech has, and we realize it by our views and by the participation and the likes and the follows, and we appreciate it. But it's got to be nice to have this backing behind you of all these years of folks that have gone through what you've gone through and now leading them, and they've been a thirsty group, especially for a basketball title. How rewarding is it to have that kind of backing and support from the Cass Tech community?
It means everything. You know, and I've carried being a Cass Tech graduate with me everywhere I've gone, overseas, as a college coach, everything that I've done, you know, and I'm extremely biased, and I'll be the first person to tell you that, but I just can't understand, you know, with what Cass Tech has to offer, how a kid wouldn't see a reason why they would want to be a part of what's going on at Cass. I think we had 29 valedictorians this year.
Wow.
You know, we had somebody with a 5.0 grade point average. You know, I didn't even know that was possible. You know, we got kids going to Ivy League schools, international baccalaureate. You know, it's just a phenomenal institution and with a phenomenal alumni base, like you said, and you have so much to gain. You know, just when I was there, you know, I went to school with the police chief. The mayor was my teammate. Miss America, Miss USA. You know, these people were at the school at the same time. You know, we had the number one hurdler in the country last year, who's at USC now. You know, and we have music to offer, all the arts. You know, whatever your lane is, it's there. You know, and the alumni base and being able to connect with people in different walks of life all over the world is just immeasurable. You know, and I can't wait for my sons to be a part of it, and you know, hopefully other people feel the same way about their children being able to be a part of it.
What's the coolest experience you've had with one of those famous Cass Tech alums, like a personal interaction that maybe you had that resonates with you today, or was something you're most proud of?
I can remember going to University of Washington in Seattle, Washington as a freshman, and one of my first couple of days on campus, you know, it's 30-something thousand students, and I'm all the way across the country, and I run into somebody who's a Cass Tech graduate, you know, and that just let me know, you know, I thought I was all alone across the world, all by myself, and Cass people are everywhere, you know. You know, my sister's out in North Hollywood now, in California, and everywhere you go, you know, it's just people that carry our brand well, you know, and I could give you a lot of examples, but just knowing that people go and they're productive citizens, and people recognize Cass Tech all over the world. You know, it's a flagship school, and we like to carry the torch for the district and the city. It's something that we feel proud about.
You know, one thing I always thought you did a great job of was preparation. You know, I was telling Chad earlier, you could be playing a team that I think you're going to beat by 40, and you would call me and say, if we played them, or if I saw them, who's their shooter, what defense they run at you, you know, what actions worked against them, things like that. Obviously, preparation is something that you take seriously and that you learned, you know, as your coaching careers went on here. Who are some of the coaching mentors that you had that made an impact on you that you still use a lot of the principles that they taught you?
It's just immeasurable. It's just such a large amount of people. Mac, I was never an assistant coach, so I would just go into people's practices and watch, you know, what they were doing. You know, it's obvious for someone my age that the premier program when I was coming up was Southwestern, you know, so I was always enamored with Southwestern, and it wasn't really just the winning. It was the ability to send kids to college. You know, guys that didn't start till they were seniors, they were getting Division I scholarships. That was a big deal to me, you know, and that was something that spoke to me, you know, and I always like the coaches that were professional people too. You know, when I was in high school, that was kind of required. You know, people were in the building. They had, you know, high positions in the school with large perceptions, and they had large roles in the building. And those are some of the people, you know, without just throwing a boatload of names at you, you know, that meant something to me. You know, and people that could lose star players and graduate guys and come right back and be good again. You know, that's something that drives me at this stage of my career, you know, to lose good players and come back with people you never heard of and still be good, you know, and people that have had those type of programs in high school and college. Kelvin Sampson, you know, somebody that I've always admired. Mike Jarvis was somebody that I always admired too. Leonard Hamilton was another person that I admired, to name a few.
You've coached in the college ranks at the Division I level, which, you know, hey, look, that's great experience, especially for being able to know what these Division I coaches expect as a high school coach and vice versa. Talk about your travels to Duquesne, to Youngstown State as a coach, and also as your playing days at Washington and Virginia Tech.
Yep. Yep. Just the relationships that you develop through sports. It's like I feel like I'm almost one or two people removed from being able to connect with almost anybody. Especially in the sports world. If you tell me what city you're from, what high school you went to, and what year you graduated from, within a couple of months, I can probably start naming some people, and we can probably connect that way. So that's something that's meant a lot to me. I can remember being in Asia, going to the Philippines, playing overseas, and it was an airport full of Asians, and I'm walking to my terminal, and I cross paths with another American, and we sit there and we have a 20-minute conversation, and that became somebody that I became friends with, just off of running into each other in the airport. So sports has opened those type of doors for me. It enabled me to travel the world. It enabled me to live on both coasts, and enabled me to have a huge network of friends and colleagues that I can utilize to help my players and players in my city and my community and beyond. And that's been my drive.
Yeah, right on.
So one thing about you have the ability, or you coached in college, so a lot of high school coaches can't speak on this, and again, it's a hot topic button in the state of Michigan, and that's the shot clock. Whether to add it, whether not to add it. What are your thoughts on that, since you have coached the game both ways, with and without it?
Well, for a while, I've kind of advocated keeping things as they are, but with the changes that are coming about, I'm in favor of the shot clock. I'm in favor of expanding, the distance that our kids can travel. I'm just in favor of evolution. Yeah, the shot clock, I would love to see that, and love to prepare our student athletes for the next level, because that's what the next level consists of, and if that's what other states are doing, then, I'm in favor of all progression.
Let's touch on Mr. Acuff and his summer and what he's been up to, and he's collected an offer, it seems like, every day. His national ranking has skyrocketed up into the top 15 in his class. Tell us about Acuff and what kind of kid and player, and his summer and what he's doing.
Well, here we are, June 26th, so, we got out of school a couple of weeks ago. So a lot of the things that you're speaking about have just happened since school got out, and it's stuff happening every day. And, I just talked about the evolution in terms of the shot clock and things of that nature. It's also an evolution in terms of social media and, things that haven't always been the way they are. And, sometimes, not just in his case, but in all kids' cases, it's just about being grounded, being humble, maintaining perspective, and chopping wood every day, in all aspects of your life. So he's a gifted kid. He's being recognized. That can be a gift, as long as all these kids stay focused on what it entails. It's symbolic of some of the things that can come your way if you continue to do the things that you need to do. But there's also a bunch of kids that, get enamored with the attention, and sometimes it could be a detriment. So my goal with all of the kids is for them to use that as motivation. But it's hard, Chad. It's hard when, if it's 10 people talking to you and 9 people are blowing smoke, and one person is, kind of trying to keep you grounded. It's easy to block that one person out, especially when, it's no shortage of acclaim and glory. So, you're talking about a very talented young man, that's accomplished a whole lot in 2 years, and I don't know at the halfway point of a person's career, if I'm a parent, I'm pretty satisfied with a city championship, a state championship, a Mr. PSL, a Max PreP State Player of the Year, a top 15 player nationally, a top player in your position nationally. That's a pretty good start. So I think that when you have things in your favor that are going that are helping make those things happen, I think that there's been some people, maybe like Imani Bates, that chose to go a different path. And sometimes, sometimes when you change your trajectory, sometimes it doesn't always end up favorable.
So Acuff's biggest shot of the season, maybe not just for him, but for the entire state, was his banked in 3 in the semis to send it to overtime. I know as a coach, you've got this in your head. You probably remember it. So what were you thinking as the ball was coming up the court and that whole play transpired?
I can remember my second time making it to Breslin. we had the same opportunity and we missed that shot. You know, in sports, you know, sometimes you're going to get the bounce, sometimes you're not going to get the bounce, you know. What was going through my head at that time is crazy, Mac, because when I'm going through the situation, the only thing I can concentrate on is what's next. You know, and when I reflect on it, like, wow, the odds were against us right there, you know, but all I was concentrating on was we called a timeout, we ran a play, you know, and really all I can ask for is the ball last. If you put me in a situation where I'm down one with the ball or I'm up one without the ball, I'd rather be the one that's down one to control my own destiny, you know, and in that situation, you know, we got the ball to the person that we wanted to get the ball to, and he made the shot, you know, and, you know, things worked out for us that time.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I think there's so many coaches that focus on the plays and just think about the players, not the plays, is kind of the way to go in those situations.
62-56 semifinal winners over Grand Blanc. The banked-in 3 to get to OT. You had to feel like a team of destiny. And then just kind of a wipeout, 78-63 over Muskegon in the final. I know it wasn't always that easy, but you just had to know at that point. You bank it in. Things are going your way. You created that opportunity, yes, but it was going to be your year at that point, and that had to feel just right.
So one thing myself and the coaches, the assistant coaches talk about, since we've been coaching, we've never lost in the championship. We've won 5 PSL championships. Every time we made it to the championship, we've won. We won 4 state championships. Every time we made it to the state championship, we've won. The only time we've ever lost was in the semifinals. So we're undefeated in championships. So, you know, I always say the hardest part is to get to the championship. Once you get there, it's no pressure. This is our last game. You know, regardless, win or lose, it's our last game. Let's go out there and have fun. And that's been a good formula for us. It's worked well.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for coming by. Best of luck this summer. Keep the train rolling. You got a lot of guys coming back. We're excited for you. Congratulations. You deserve this.
I appreciate it so much, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Thanks so much. That's Steve Hall, the Detroit Free Press Coach of the Year. Mac and I are back in a bit. Thanks again to Steve. We'll be back right after these with more on the Prep Pod.
The Prep Pod is sponsored by myself and Mitten Mortgage Lending. At Mitten Mortgage Lending, you can work with a broker for all of your mortgage needs, mortgage, refinance, do many different products, VA, conventional, FHA loans. A hot program right now is the one-time close new construction loan, which the minimum to put down is 5%. FICO over 700. This is beneficial to both the client and the the client and the builder. Client 5% down, not a lot to ask for. If you've already purchased the land, that can be included into it. So a lot of options there, especially if you're out there and you're shopping for a home and haven't been able to find something because of the crazy market that we're in. If you're a builder, this is also beneficial to you because the financing is there before a shovel even goes into the ground. So if you're interested, again, call myself, Mac Horvath, 313-477-1965, or email at mac@mittenloans.com, and that's NMLS 1773215.
All right. Go see him. Mac Horvath, Mitten Mortgage Lending. Special thanks to Steve Hall for joining us. What a great chat it was with Steve. Welcome back to the Prep Pod. Ali Hadi, your executive producer. Mac Horvath and Chad Bush. What did you think of Coach Steve Hall's assessment?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. Can feel the energy from sitting right next to him. I liked a lot of the things he said. One thing definitely about the scheduling. It's a lot of things people don't think about when he brought up that I'm not trying to be the best in January, December. I'm trying to be the best in March, and that's super true. And that's different for every school. Cass Tech's one where football's always making a deep run. You're going to have multi-sport athletes. So that's something that, you got to consider at Cass Tech that you might not have to consider at other schools. And again, that's some things that I think people kind of take for granted or don't really think about. Other good thing I like that he mentioned, they really make teams prepare for them and not over prepare for other teams. I see coaches make that mistake a lot, that they focus so much on what the other team does that they lose their identity. That's something Coach Hall's never done. They're going to play their way, fast, up-tempo, pressing, and they're going to make you adjust to them, which I think, again, is beneficial. And I think there's going to be a lot of coaches that might hear that and try to take that philosophy into the next season.
And that press, man, I tell you, I mean, it's instinctual, but you also have to just really understand the intensity and the momentum that press brings. Like if you get one turnover, they know how to turn one turnover into 4 quick points.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen a team ride a wave after a turnover like Cass Tech last year. I mean, that was really something.
Yeah.
You could just feel. I mean, what, they were down to King by how many? Double digits?
Yeah, 17, I think, at one point. It was pretty big.
Yeah, but you just felt that, oh, man, this is a real you felt their emotion, and the press is legit.
Yeah, and it's something, too. If you're the team that's preparing, we ran very similar stuff defensively. We didn't have the athletes Cass Tech has. But if you are, preparing for that, you're going to have your 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th man on the roster go to try to simulate that in practice, and Cass does it every day. Every day they're up-tempo, pressing in practice. It's intense. And, again, if you're going to go have the bottom 5 of your team go try to simulate that in practice, good luck, because that's a tough ask.
That's a good point. We think about depth in that, okay, well, you need guys to come off the bench during games that can, fit the roles and give guys rest and add a burst. But you don't think about practice, like being 10 guys deep and being able to have 10 guys that can go at each other and get better every day. There's not a lot of rosters that can really say they can do that legitimately to the full amount that they want.
Mm-hmm.
Cass could really do that last year. They had 10 guys that they felt at a practice were going to help get each other better.
Yeah, and
in depth.
It sounds like from Coach Hall too. That's something that they're going to have this upcoming season as well. Like we mentioned, it's a young roster, but there were some guys that he mentioned that he's real excited about. His son being one of them.
Yeah, Stevie.
Yeah, that's gonna fill the void this year. And yeah, I bet you. I mean, any coach would be excited to coach those practices because I'm sure they're just absolute wars. And then once it comes game time, you better be going through the same wars in practice to be prepared for them because they've been through it.
So Cass is certainly a team to look out for in 2023-24. It's not too early to look at some other teams that could be contenders, and the usual suspects are going to be back at it. Mm-hmm. I guess, let's stay in the PSL. Obviously, Detroit King is highly touted. They've got a nice tandem that you can build around.
Yeah, for sure. Coffey and Lewis are two big pieces of their team last year. Coach George Ward does a tremendous job at King. That's a huge battle. And, there's some people like we've seen that have had King ranked higher than Cass. I mean, it's early. It's June. We're talking about next year's rankings, but I don't know how that's possible right now with Cass being the defending state champs. But, as Coach Hall mentioned, I'm sure they'll use that as motivation. But that's always, those two are going to go at it, and those two should always really be in the top 10. They're top 10 talent-wise, coach-wise, and definitely, if either one of those teams ended up in the Breslin, the Final Four, I mean, no one would be surprised about that.
Staying on the young talent trio tour, Renaissance has quite a cluster of sophomores coming back as well. They're going to make a push and some noise in the PSL, we think.
Yeah, Sigmund, I thought, was one of the best freshmen that there was in the state last year. So being able to build around that, whether they can keep that collection of talent together remains to be seen. But if they are able to do that, that is the other team in the PSL that I think can jump up and really give King and Cass a scare. And don't forget about Western either, because Western always silently reloads, and I know that they give King and Cass everything they can handle every time they meet.
Yeah, Pershing also in some of the lower division can give headaches. Other teams locally and across the state, I know on the west side of the state, there's a certain team that stands out for you as well.
Yeah, East Kentwood. Coach Thomas is there for a year or two rolling through. They got some big names I'm missing the name. We just took
two names. The combo guy.
Yeah, he's got some big time offers, and they'll play a challenging schedule. I'm sure the Prep will be covering some of their games in December and January, so everyone's going to get a first-hand look at them. But that's definitely a team on the west side of the state that could make some noise.
The Central Division, always tough. It's going to be tougher next year. We talked about Rice earlier in the program, getting some additions. St. Mary's obviously is going to have be a headliner as well and a contender, and some have already the number one team next year. Trey McKinney comes back. Really, the whole roster comes back. with the exception of Jackson Wazalewski. Everybody else returns. Then, of course, they add Savory and Hines, the guys who sat out a year ago.
Yeah, officially back in there. Officially back in there. But, yeah, Orchard Lake is the team. Again, when I talk to coaches about who stands out in the summer, almost every one of them mentions them. Trey's a big part of that, along with the pieces that are around him are really solid pieces as well. And then you look in the Central, we mentioned it early at the beginning of the show that Brother Rice has been reloading with some transfer talent. Warren Marshall still being there. Teams it seems to always happen. They'll sleep on De La Salle, which Phoenix Glasner will gladly awaken you to.
He's
that.
picking up some offers.
Yes, yeah, just picked up a Central offer I saw. So
fire up.
Yeah, and then you forget about UAD, but
Can't forget about UAD.
UAD's UAD.
Pat Donnelly's there. There's going to be a fight on your hands.
Yeah, and then there's the new regime starting at Catholic Central with Coach Torrey Jackson.
That's right.
So it'd be real interesting to see, how CC throws their hat in the mix. Which again, they're returning a very good roster as well.
Yeah, should be exciting stuff. What's ahead as we look at basketball and the seasons of contact period and non-contact period and when teams can compete? What can fans sort of look forward to in the next couple months of activity?
Well, right. I mean, you're going to kind of get back into AAU season. So with high school, June is really the high school time. April, May is AAU. June hits high school. There's still some high school going on, summer league games and whatnot in July. July kind of football ramps up, so it's a little less prevalent, with teams playing without their full roster. But yeah, it sounds like it's going to be one of the most loaded rosters and loaded with players and talent that we've seen here in quite some time. So again, it should be an exciting winter we have coming up to us.
What do you make of the guys that are adding football to their resume and getting offers? We saw last year with Ryan Mooney, he had not played football ever, decided to give up baseball, gets a football scholarship to Harvard. This year at Savory, hasn't played a down of football.
Yeah.
Decides to come out of Jermaine Gonzalez's club at St. Mary's. He's already got multiple offers. Sherrod Barnes is fine. I mean, what's your make of this with everybody kind of converting back to this dual sport, multi-sport athlete?
I love it. I mean, I'm a big advocate of multi-sport, as Coach Hall mentioned, especially as a basketball coach. I mean, the football players, when you get them, they add toughness. They're going to be well put together. You don't have to worry about that as far as being scrawny, because football gets them in the weight room. And there's just some intangibles that a football player can just plug those pieces very easily that some basketball coaches are missing. So I love the fact that those players are adding those opportunities, and then they should add opportunities. Any chance to get to the next level. I think when kids are in middle school, basketball is always kind of the number one thing. Football, it requires a lot of weight room. They only play like 9 games. I mean, it's a lot of time in the weight room to just play 9 games. But those offers are real, and those college scholarships are real. There's a lot more becoming available. The football rosters are huge. More schools are adding football than getting rid of it. So there's a lot of opportunities there. And again, I'm all for those kids taking the leap and grabbing those opportunities.
Awesome. He's Matt Horvath. Ali Hadi, your executive producer. That's going to wrap up episode number 2 of the Prep Pod. My name is Chad Bush. Thanks so much for watching and being a part of this episode. We'll have baseball as our theme and focus next week, as Novi head coach Rick Green will join us, and we'll have him in studio. We'll talk baseball. We'll have a lot of other highlights of our past season in baseball as well. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate it. For Matt Horvath and Ali Hadi, my name's Chad Bush. We'll talk to you very soon. This is the Prep Pod, episode number 2. Be well, everybody.